Hey, Abnormal Family.
Hello.
We got another story that we wanted to share with you tonight. I've read some of it, and what I've read is pretty crazy. But we'll go ahead and get into it.
Have you watched her video?
When I was around 12 or so, my mom and I lived in an apartment in Texas. She was a single mom, so it was just her and I for many years. I was and still am very fortunate that she put me first and did her best to make sure I had what I needed. Unfortunately, her work schedule didn't allow for her to be home when I got off school, so I usually had to take care of myself in the afternoons until she got off. It wasn't so bad. Usually, by the time I fixed myself a snack and got through my homework, she was home. I should note that at this time, I was still sleeping with my mom. I literally started out in my own room, but I began having these horrible nightmares. It was the same dream each time. I was sleeping in my room and I could see a figure lurking in the hallway. I'd get up and turn on the lights, and something or someone would grab my hand. I would instantly wake up. The touch of that hand was the coldest feeling I'd ever experienced. It was so vivid in my mind, I felt incredibly sad, almost like the happiness was draining out of me. I started making excuses about wanting to sleep with her. My mom never made a big fuss about it. We would stay up late reading on a regular basis, and I would accidentally, she put in quotation marks, fall asleep. I hated that room, and I avoided it and going in there at all cost. It got so bad that every morning before school, I would lay out a change of clothes in the living room so I wouldn't have to go up there to get ready or change whenever I got home. My mom started to notice this routine and asked why I didn't just simply change in my room. I just made up some stupid excuse and brushed it off. I kept my bedroom door shut at all times, and I would hurry past it if I needed to use the restroom. Imagine having to do that. The dream seemed to stay away once I stayed in my mom's room. It had been so long that I started to forget about them. One night, my mom had already fallen asleep, but I was still nose deep in my latest library book. It was late, definitely past midnight, when I got an eerie feeling. I couldn't place it, but I was instantly uncomfortable. I put my book down and noticed a lump under the covers. Towards the end of the bed, we had a cat at the time, but I knew it wasn't her because she hated anything on top of her or that covered her. I stared at the lump and it started to move towards me. Ooh. I froze. Every fiber in my body was screaming to move, but I was paralyzed with fear. I finally mustered a weak "Mom" and nudged her, all while keeping an eye on the lump. Finally, my mom woke, and as soon as she spoke, the covers went completely flat, like a balloon whose air had been released. I went into crying and told my mom what had happened. She assured me that I was reading too much scary stuff before bed, and my eyes had played tricks on me. I convinced myself she was right and went to sleep. One weekend, I had a friend sleep over. My mom made a big deal about preparing my room for my friend and thought maybe since I wouldn't be alone that it wouldn't be an issue. We did the whole typical sleepover shenanigans, played with each other's hair, and talked over our latest crushes, all while listening to the newest In Sync City. In Sync City, I started to get anxiety as bedtime loomed closer. I somehow convinced my friend that it would be better if we made a bed on the floor in my mom's room because my room got hot or some crap like that. We quietly moved to our mom's room on the floor next to her bed and fell asleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke instantly and sat straight up. I was staring at the lump at the foot of my mom's bed. I suddenly became overwhelmed with the urge to touch it. I lifted the sheet and placed my hand upon the smoothest object I had ever touched. I instantly felt every happy memory being sucked away from my body. All thoughts, emotions were drained. It felt colder than any weather I've ever experienced. I became empty, like an empty shell of a person. Nothing was left but numb darkness. It was as if I was under a trance. I somehow was able to pull my head away and I threw myself against the wall. I stared at the lump until I fell asleep. The next morning, I retold what happened to my mom, and she broke down in tears. She thought that this was all behind us, but clearly it was more than she previously thought. I didn't do much that day. My mom kept herself busy with Sunday chores while I stared blankly at the TV. As she stepped out for a bit to do some laundry, she ran into our neighbor. Her name has left me, but I remember her being a caring figure in my life and a wonderful friend to my mother. My mom confided in her about all the odd occurrences, and her face went grim. Our neighbor was Native American and was super in tune with her culture and traditions. She explained to my mother that for some time she had been feeling a presence and could not place its origin. My mom asked her to come inside to speak with me. She agreed, and upon stepping up to our door, she retreated. She said the origin was our apartment, and the spirit would not allow her to cross the threshold. At this point, my mom was hysterical, as most mothers would be if someone told them an evil being was possessing her in her daughter's home. Our neighbor apologized, but promised she would gather what she could to help us. In the meantime, my mom reached out to my grandmother. Not that crap wasn't already weird, but crap got even weirder. My grandmother immediately told my mom to call my uncle. He had phoned my grandmother earlier in the day asking about me, and didn't say as to why he was concerned, so my grandmother pretty much brushed it off. My mom called my uncle, and as soon as he answered the phone, he said, "I've been waiting on your call. We need to act now. It gives me chills to talk about it. We weren't close with this uncle at all and hadn't talked to him in years. He told us that an evil spirit had possessed our home and he was going to help us get rid of it. He sent a bottle of oil that was supposedly poured upon Jesus, upon where Jesus was laid to rest. I feel as if it was a crock of crap, but whatever. It made it sound pretty legit. He instructed us all to bless the doorways, entryways, the windows, and every other door, to the closets and everything. He gave us a prayer to repeat and told us to make the sign of the cross over each one. The neighbor had also given us a dream catcher to place upon the bed frame the night we blessed the house. She made us swear to stay in our bedroom that night and not to emerge until morning. My mom and I quickly blessed the house and both passed out of exhaustion. That night was the first night I had slept soundly since we moved in. My mom, however, laid awake the entire night. Whatever we did really hacked off the spirit. She said she held me tight and put her back towards the window as someone or something howled, crying the entire night. It was terrifying screams, as if the realization had sunk in that we had shut the spirit out, and it was no longer welcome. She said that night was the longest night of her life. To this day, I have no clue what I experienced. If my mom hadn't gone through it with me, I probably would have thought I was crazy. Seeing it laid out through text definitely makes it seem insane and completely unreal. That sounds like another evil entity to me. It wasn't happy about the blessing of the doors because it knew it couldn't cross back over it, so it was screaming because it knew
You couldn't go back in there because
that it couldn't enter. Yeah.
That it was God's house then.
I'm glad, however, that they was able to get it out of there. That's a good thing. But the only part that I really didn't like about that story is whenever she thought it was like a crock of crap.
Yeah.
That blessing the house. That's the only part, that I didn't like.
Yeah, I didn't like
but
that.
That's weird. To me, it's like it's been there for a while.
They said they moved into it.
Yeah, I feel bad, for the mom. Because she had to lay there and listen to it. But, I mean, it's good that the daughter was able to get some sleep.
And it's good that it's gone.
It was an interesting story, that's for sure.
That's a
I'm
scary
excited to hear
story.
what you guys think.
Yeah.
I always enjoy reading your guys' comments and your inputs about,
Yeah.
what you believe it could have possibly been, or, why it was screaming and crying like that. But I'm glad I got to read the story to you guys.
Yeah.
God bless you guys, and we'll see you on the next live or the next video. Bye guys.